السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم. يتفضل بسم الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقوله أو نكاح أراد به النكاح الصحيح. أما إذا زوج إحداهما نكاحا فاسدا لا يباح له الأخرى إلا أن يدخل الزوج بها فيه، لأنه تجب العدة عليها، والعدة كالنكاح الصحيح في التحريم. ولو وطئ إحداهما حل له وطء موطوءة دون الأخرى، لأنها يصير جامعا بوطء أخرى، لا بوطء موطوءة. وكل امرأتين لا يجوز الجمع بينهما.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. اللهم نبر قلوبنا بمعرفتك، واشرح صدورنا بنور كتابك وسنة نبيك، واحفظنا عن زلل وخطأ في بيان مرادك. ربنا ولا تؤاخذنا بما نسينا واخطأنا. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا واجعلنا من اتقاء شهر رمضان. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. We'll continue discussing the Masla. Yesterday we still under the Kitab al-Karahiyah, and we're discussing various different topics of what is allowed, what is not allowed. So under the topic of what is permissible for a person to look at and not to look at, now I come to the topic of where in certain circumstances for a person, that which was legal for him to do in terms of intimacy and so forth is temporarily suspended due to an aril, due to uh, a situation that has arisen, which is acting as an impediment for that permissibility. So we were saying that if a person owns two slave girls and then sisters, they're related to each other. Sisters, just as an example, but they're related to each other. And if he then kisses one of them with passion, that now will mean that he's not allowed to do anything else with both of them. Understand? With either one of them, neither intimacy nor those things that lead to intimacy, unless he makes one of them or sells one of them, right? Or gives an ownership one of them, whether it be by sale, by gifting, whatever the case may be, or he gets one of them married to somebody else, or he frees her. And then he'll be allowed to have intimacy with the other one. So we discussed all that yesterday. So now we're saying that in the Ibarah he mentioned getting them married, right? So he's saying, وَقَوْلُهُ أَوْ نِكَاحٍ, in the Ibarah where he mentions Imam Muhammad rahimahullah ta'ala وعن كل مشايخنا نفع الله بعلومهم وبكم في الدارين آمين. That by nikah it meant nikah sahih, a correct nikah, a nikah in which all the shurut and so forth were fulfilled. أما إذا زوج إحداهما نكاحا فاسدا, anyway, if it's to get one of them married but the nikah was fasid, invalid, then لا يباح له وجه الأخرى. Then in this case it still won't be permissible for him to have intimacy with the other one. إلا أن يدخل الزوج بها فيه لأنه تجب العدة عليه, unless her husband in the nikah fasid also had intimacy with her. Then, so if her husband had intimacy with her, not realizing at the time the nikah was invalid, understand? Then it will be allowed now for the master to have relationships with the other sister that he still owns. For example, why? لأنه تجب العدة. Why? Because even in nikah fasid, by the husband having relationships with that wife in nikah fasid, she still has to go into iddah. And والعدة كالنكاح الصحيح في التحريم. And the iddah, has the same status as a valid nikah with regards to making something haram. ولو وطئ إحداهما. Okay, you understand that?
Okay.
Okay, right. Now this is a different masala, right? Completely different. Okay, we know he's not supposed to, but what if he does? He's not supposed to until he does one of those things, get married, freeze or whatever, freeze one of them. But what if he does? Then what? So they're saying, وَلَوْ وَطِئَ إِحْدَاهُمَا حَلَّ لَهُ وَجْهُ الْمَوْضُوعَ دُونَ الْأُخْرَى. If he was to have intercourse with one of the two sisters, for example, then it will be permissible for him thereafter to have intimacy, meaning again in brackets, with the one he had intercourse with Mawtu'a. Dun al-ukhra, not the other one. So if he had intimacy with the one, he can continue carrying on with the one only. But the other one will still remain impermissible for him. Why? لأنه يصير جامعا بوطل الأخرى. Why? Because if he now has intimacy with the other one, he'll fall under the prohibition of an act of joining between two sisters, for example, two females that are related to each other. لا بوطل الموتوتة. This won't be the case by him continuing having intimacy with the one whom he had relationships with in the beginning. Understood that?
Okay.
And so this is the case of if he was to do what he's not supposed to do. So above he was discussing those the dawa'i and the effect of the dawa'i. Here he's discussing actual intimacy and the effect that it will have. Maybe the person didn't know the masala, whatever the case is. So this is the masala. Now the last thing, وكل امرأتين لا يجوز الجمع بينهما كنكاحا فيما ذكرناه في منزل الأختين. Although we mentioned أختين in the ibara, is not confined to two sisters. Every such two women was not permissible for you to be married to at the same time in one nikah. It will apply to all such women. بمنزل الأختين, they have the same status as two sisters. So her aunt and her niece, for example, and so on and so forth. You can't get married to them both in one nikah or at the same time. So therefore, if you were to own two slaves, one is an aunt and one is a niece, everything will apply. Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything you didn't understand of the Masala, you want to ask a question from yesterday?
Alhamdulillah, I think I understood it now. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. Then carrying on from there. ويكره أن يقبل رجل فم رجل أو يده أو شيئا منه أو يعانقه. And it is makruh, reprehensible, for one man to kiss another man on the lips, the mouth, or to kiss his hand, or any part of him, or to hug him. وذكر التحاوي رحمه الله أن هذا قول أبي حنيفة ومحمد. Imam التحاوي رحمه الله has mentioned that this is the opinion of طرفين. وقال أبي يوسف رحمه الله تعالى. However, Imam Yusuf رحمه الله تعالى says لا بأس بالتقبيل والمعانقة. There is no problem with kissing another person's hand, another man's hand, or hugging him without shahwa, obviously, and without and with some kind of as will be mentioned in front, with some kind of barrier. The masla in the ibada is actually, you might confuse about that. The masla is referring to shahwa, or is it, in the case of hugging, referring to hugging bare body. Understand? Both the males are without clothing or the top half is open when they're hugging. That's not permissible. Okay, otherwise, as you know, you can kiss the hand of a pious person, as happens sometime on your staff and so forth. But then, because there's no fear of shahwa there. So anyway, Imam Muhammad Rahman says no problem with kissing and hugging, because it's been related and the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Ja'far. They say Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he hugged Ja'far when he came back from Habasha, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was returning from Khaybar at that time. And when he returned, his cousins, Ja'far and he hugged him out of happiness. حين قدم من الحبشة إلى تام يريتان from Abyssinia, from the hijrah to Abyssinia. He had made the hijrah in Makkah, and he only came back to Medina, only able to return to Medina the year that Nabi Sallallahu conquered Khaybar, which was around about the 4th year, more or less. وقبل بين عينيه, and Nabi Sallallahu kissed him between the eyes. ولهما, and for طرفي ما روي أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن المقامعة وهي المعانقة وعن المقاعمة. مقامعة ومقاعمة. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prohibited from muqama, وهي المعانقة, which is zagging, muqama is zagging, and muqa'ama, that's muqa'ama, وهي التلبية to kiss. وما رواه محمول على ما قبل تحريم, and that narration which Imam Yusuf is presented is applicable to the time before it was made haram, before the prohibition. However, like I say, this refers to shahwa, understand? Or in the case of ragging, they both don't have their tops on. ثم قالوا الخلاف في المعانقة في إزار واحد. Thereafter they say there's difference of opinion is with regards to ragging when they are only wearing one item of clothing, the bottom off. Right? أما إذا كان عليه قميص أو جبة فلا بأس بها بالإجماع. However, the person is wearing a shirt or a jubba, a cloak, for example, a top covering, then there's no problem with ragging, male ragging, with ijma, by consensus, or sahih, and it is the correct opinion. Okay, so I'm sure that is very clear there. ولا بأس بالمصاحفة, and there's no problem with shaking hands, meaning male, right? Not strange female, not a male with a strange female. لأنه متوارد, لأنه متوارد, why? Because this has been standard practice carried down throughout the ages. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام من صافح أخاه المسلم وحرك يده تناثر ذنوبه. Nabi Sallallahu reported there said that whoever shakes the hand of his Muslim brother and shakes his hand, whoever gives a handshake to his Muslim brother and shakes his hand when he gives the handshake, his sins fall off. However, in the Hasha they say the words are not exactly like that. The words are different, and the Hadith is not related to these exact words. Allah Alam. Any questions?
الحمد لله على السلامة.
Anything? Okay. The next chapter is with regards to those things which are impermissible or otherwise in Bayn. Now again, obviously this refers to miscellaneous Masail. It was not covered in Kitab al-Buyu. Faslun fil Bayn. So start on the Kitab al-Karahiyya. ولا بأس ببيع السركين ويكره بيع العذرة. And there's no problem with selling dung, animal dung. However, it is makruh to sell human waste. عذرة. وقال الشافعي رحمه الله لا يجوز بيع السركين. And Imam Shafi رحمه الله says it is not permissible to sell animal dung as well. And just like it is not permissible to sell human waste, it is not permissible to sell animal waste or dung. لأنه نجس العين. Why? Because it's نجس العين. So in that manner, when something is najis al-ayn, to take benefit of it also is not permissible. لأنه نجس العين فشابه عذرة, so therefore it resembles human waste. وجلد الميت, and it also resembles the skin of carrion, a hide of carrion. قبل الدباغ, prior to it being tanned, prior to it being treated. ولنا, and our argument is this, أنه منتفع به, that dung is something that is benefit is taken from it. So when it's beneficial, it becomes متقوم, it becomes مال متقوم. لأنه يلقى في الأراضي لاستكثار ضيق. Why? Because it is thrown into the land, into the fields, plantations, in order to increase the crops. But as today we still do that. We still use it as fertilizer and to encourage growth. Okay. So it was just as an example. Otherwise, there are other benefits of it as well. Other countries use it as fuel for fire and so on and so forth. So it is beneficial. It can be used for various purposes. Some people use it as a what you call this, as a type of plaster on the walls. They plaster the walls of their houses with it, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there are many benefits that can be derived from even the dung of animals. So when it is muntafa, when it is beneficial, it becomes malutaka, when it becomes something of value. And when it becomes something of value, then it can be sold. فَكَانَ مَالًا, so therefore it has a status of wealth. Wealth meaning something of value. وَالْمَالُ حَلُّ الْبَيْعِ, and wealth is the subject, or it is the the subject of transactions. It is used in transactions. بخلاف العذرة, contrary to human ways. لأنه ينتفع بمخلوطا, because it can only be benefit from if it is mixed up with sand and so forth, not on its own. ويجوز بيع مخلوط, it is permissible to sell human waste if it is مخلوط, if it is mixed up with something and makes it beneficial, such as I said, sand and so forth. وهو الورمي عن محمد رحمه الله وهو الصحيح, and this is narrated by Imam Muhammad, and that is the correct opinion. وكذا يجوز الانتفاع مخلوط بغير المخلوط في الصحيح. And likewise, it is permissible to take benefit from makhlut, that waste which is mixed up with other products, not with the raw waste, not with the raw waste. It's sahih according to the correct opinion. While makhlut بمنزلة الزيت, and I explained that how can it be possible? So we're saying that we'll make the other thing that is mixed with it the asal, and if that thing is permissible, then the najis of the human waste won't have any effect. Can use it to take benefit from. Okay, obviously not for consumer purpose, obviously, no sense, but for other purposes. بمنزلة الزيت خالطة النجاسة. It's like how if you have oil to which some najasa has been mixed with. If you have oil in which there is some najasa, you can still use the oil for whatever benefit, to light your lamp, to cook with, to use it as fuel for the stove and so on and so forth. And oil stove and so forth, you can use it. And so this masala came in Kitab al-Najas and so forth. And so there.
Okay.
So just like how that oil to which some najasa is mixed is permissible, because of the oil content, not looking at the najasa. So in the same way here, if the human waste is mixed with some other material, which is clean, we will look at that other material as the asal, as the original, and the masala of intifa will be based upon that. And the human waste, the najasa, the human waste won't affect the ability to take benefit from it. So in today's time, with all that we have now, we can see that the Hanafi madhab has actually become very practical and easier for people. And otherwise, because we can see nowadays, things like this are used in various markets. Understood?
Okay.
Call right. Another masala, ومن علم بجارية, right? This is completely different. ومن علم جارية أن لرجل فرأى آخر يبيعها وقال وكلني صاحبها ببيعها فإنه يسع أن يبتاع ويطاع. This actually relates to a masala which we did previously with regards to accepting a khabar of somebody. Can you do so in mu'amalat? So no. And we did it before. You can accept even though it's khabar wahid, even though it's one person, and regardless of who that person is, Muslim, non-Muslim, slave, free person, so on and so forth. Okay. So this masala is related to that. So whoever knows that a slave girl, for example, a slave girl or an item in our terms, a car belongs to this particular person, belongs to Khalid, for example. However, he sees that car I'm just changing jariyah for car. You see the slave girl or car in somebody else's position, and that person is selling that car. This is Khalid's car. How come this guy is selling? Who's this guy? And that person says, the third party, that Khalid wakkalani sahibuha. The owner made me the wakil. Khalid made me the wakil to sell his car in his behalf. ببيعها. فإنه يسع أن يبتاعها. It will be permissible for that person, for yourself in our example, to purchase يبتاع أي يشتريها. To purchase that car from this third person, third party, say, okay, يطاع won't work for the car. Or يطاع, and you can purchase a slave girl and have relationships with her as well. And so the masala,
Okay.
as in our example, you can buy the car and use it. لأنه أخبر بخبر صحيح لا منازع له. Why? Because the third party, he has given a truthful, he has conveyed a truthful information. So on the surface, there's nothing. It doesn't seem to be suspect. What he's saying, because it's in his possession. ولا منازع, and there's nothing to argue against what he's saying, because people do this all the time. They appoint other people to do as wakils to carry out his various duties for themselves. So outwardly, everything supports what he's saying. So fil mu'amalat, he's saying, in business transaction, you can accept the information of one person, even if you don't know the person properly, okay? وفي القول الواحد مقبول على أي وصف. So the information of one person in mu'amalat is accepted regardless of this, of the quality, regardless of the regardless of the quality of that person, regardless of the sifa of that person. Again, like I mentioned, lima maraf, what is passed before, regardless of whether the person is Muslim or non-Muslim, regardless of whether the person outwardly looks like a fasik or not, whether it's a slave or free person, male or female, doesn't matter. وكذا إذا قال اشتريتها منه أو وهب لي أو تصدق بي عليه. And the same must apply if this person, the third party, says, he sold it to me, Khalid sold her to me, or he gifted her to me, or he gave it as charity to me. You can, the same as will apply. إما كنا for the same reason we just said now. وهذا إذا كان ثقة. And this is if the person is, هذا إذا كان ثقة وكذا إذا كان غير ثقة وأكبر الرأي أنه صادق. So this will apply with the person is trustworthy, and similarly if he's not trustworthy. However, your major opinion of him is that he looks truthful. Why? لأنه عدالة المخبر في المعاملات غير لازمة. Because as we mentioned before in the beginning in that masala that I just mentioned, the adala, trustworthiness of a person giving information in mu'amalat, in business transactions, غير لازمة, is not necessary. It doesn't have to be adil. That's why you can accept the information of a non-Muslim also. And as I mentioned there, out of necessity, we have to do this, otherwise it becomes very difficult. Alama mara, as is already passed. وإن كان أكبر رأيه أنه كاذب. However, if the major opinion of his in his mind, this person looks like a liar, something not right here. لم يسع له أن يتعرض بشيء من ذلك. It is not appropriate for him to be get involved in any of those things. Okay? لأن أكبر رأيه يقام مقام اليقين. Why? Because his major opinion regarding this person will take the place of conviction. But for him specifically, he will not be allowed to purchase because in his opinion, 90%, 95% he feels something not right here. وكذا إذا لم يعلم أن لفلان. And the same must will apply if he doesn't know that it belonged, that she or the car belonged to Khalid, for example. Okay? ولكن أخبره صاحب اليد أن لفلان. If the person out of his own, the third party out of his own, is volunteering that information. That this is actually Khalid's slave of mine. وإنه وكله ببيع Khalid has told me to sell this slave on his behalf. أو اشتراها منه or I purchased it from Khalid. أو والمخبر ثقة قبل قوله. And the mukhbir, the informer, is trustworthy. You can accept what he's saying. وإن لم يكن ثقة ويعتبر أكبر. If this person doesn't look trustworthy, is not trustworthy, again you will consider your major opinion. لأن إخباره حجة في حقه. Why? Because that person's information it is giving is a dalil and a proof in his regard, in his right. So that third party, when he's telling you something, that I purchased from someone, or it's actually Khalid, he made me wakil. So what he's telling you is a proof, is a sufficient proof with regard, in his right. Okay?
Okay.
Because why would a person make up stories regarding what he's doing? Why is he going to tell you it belongs to Khalid? Putting himself under the microscope for no reason. You follow? So when he
Okay.
is telling you something, volunteering information to you like that, then that's a sufficient dalil that this person is most likely telling the truth. وإن لم يخبر صاحب اليد بشيء فإن كان عرف عن الأول لم يشترى. However, if the third party is not telling you anything, he's not telling you how he came to possess that slave. He said, however, you know it belongs to Khalid. الأول لم يشتريها حتى يعلم انتقال إلى ملك الثاني. And he should not purchase it until he comes to know for sure that this item has been transferred into the hands of the second person, meaning the third party. لأن يد الأول دليل ملكه. Why? Because the known possession of the first person, Khalid in our example, is a proof of his ownership. وإن كان لا يعرف ذلك. However, if he doesn't, so otherwise now, in this case here, we have a contradiction. That he's not telling you anything, but you know this is Khalid's car. So there is something contradicting the ownership or the possession of this person. How come he has possession of it and not he's not his? He's not saying anything also. So what's going on here? Follow?
Okay. Mark, when are you breaking up? We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. تبارك وتعالى. السلام عليكم.